Well, here's a view through a very laden with moisture window in my office. And we got a little bit more than a dusting here. I'd say probably gearing on about 3 inches of snow. And yeah, there's the road right out there. But you can't even tell where the road starts and the field across the road there begins. What a deal. Didn't need this. So I've been getting a lot of questions on these terrace videos I've been talking about, and that is a big part of our soil around here, and actually for the whole state of Iowa, I think it's going to be a bigger part. So I figured today, since it's crappy outside, we're not going to be doing any harvesting, but I do have a project in the shop that Mr. Maryland Mike's been kind of complaining about, what's to say, on some videos. So he'll like what I'm going to do. Getting a couple things squared away there. Anyway, stay tuned for that. That'll just be your little cliffhanger. Diving into the terraces, the theme of today's video. This was a brochure I'd done through a program called GIMP, and designed these. These were a giveaway advertisement, and obviously the name of the channel was because of supposed to be promotionary, and I was originally going to set it up as videos I did as a dirt work, and then it would be promotionary tool. But obviously I've returned to farming, so as the future of the company, I don't know. I mean, work's extremely limited right now just because of the fact that the farmers have no money. It mainly was ag based. So you can look through my brochure here with me, the cover. Inside the brochure here was drainage tile and, planning and layouts, which is alrighty. I had to pause there for a minute, but back to this brochure. This was inside the cover, obviously page 1, and I talked about drainage tile and one of the reasons we do it. Wet spots, poor crop stands, ponding. Drainage tile always has a big payback. And then obviously I was promoting myself as to why hire us, and the types of system choices, intakes. We always mark our outlets, the Hydromax, blah blah blah. Then on the other pages here, turn the page. I talked about terraces, and this was the reason that you terrace. Crap like that, silting kills off crops. So there's yours truly with the dozers. That was the competition there. He actually built those with a D6D LGP, and he was getting them no compaction, and then he was getting it way too steep, like a 151, where a 6T, like an XW, won't do that. And I'll explain more of that going forward. And there's some terraces. And as we got down here to the end of the brochure, other services offered, just other jobs. There's a terrace and tiling job, and property we cleaned up, and ponds, and just other types of services. For the back of the brochure, we had the dozer going away and company name information. Okay, this could be sketchy to do this because I'm going to have to draw through my camera here. But here's some basic terrace types. This is what we use on our ground around here. This would be your slope of your land. This triangle is the terrace. The squiggly lines are grass here, 2-to-1 slope, 2-to-1 slope. This is the intake. Give it some perforations. That's a narrow base terrace. Some guys call them push-ups for slang. Those are good on any types of slopes. Those are the most modern day terraces around here. There are some terraces. Again, here's your ground slope. You got your intake out in the field, and then they actually go like this a long ways out, and give the ground some more slope there. In the back, the grass kind of comes down like that, at a 2-to-1, maybe even 1.5-to-1 on some of these. Then this area here is farmable, so you can plant your rows of corn. There you go. And usually this is about 30 feet from the intake to the edge of the terrace where the intakes are at. Some guys will set them to 40 if you have a 40-foot planter, back in the old days, they were always set on 30s, it seems like. I know I've run into a few of them that were set on 26.5, which would be 8 row wide. But I think most guys set them up on 30s. Over time, I've had a few guys that have had these, and they need them modified. So here's your ground slope and your intake, and you got this terrace coming up, you know. And you know, you got that 30 feet here. The end of the terrace, they'll need 40. So you know, you got this ground slope. You have to come here and do a crap ton. You know, move your intake out another 10 feet so you can get 40 between there. But then you get a grade, kind of a hole. You know, you got a grade around it, and it becomes complicated. I've actually changed a few of these back to this style only at the intake, and then left them that style everywhere else. So they're 15 feet slope on regular transitions usually. Then they're 30 feet at the intakes. That's why a 518 plow works good. And we use a plow to maintain these, because you can roll the dirt uphill out of the channel. But you want to have the right width plow. So like for us, either 1018 or 518 works good, which is 7.5 feet. So 15 before swipes at the intake. And you get your channel right down right there. The other types of terraces, here's your ground slope. Here's an intake. And they'll put grass on this slope here. Then they have a really long farmable back slope, and they farm all this side. And this is about a 2-to-1 slope on the front here with this grass on. So your intake's up close, but you're farming the backside. However, this is only usable, according to NRCS specs, on ground slopes up to 4% max. You know, like if you're basically like 3%, I mean, 4%, that's kind of a long hillside at 4%. Because if you're doing anything steeper, this is going to get so dramatically steep, and you're just causing, you know, accelerated water runoff for the next terrace. Other terrace types, boy, you guys are getting a nice camera shadow there. Other terrace types would be the old contour terrace, where there are no intakes, you know, and they're just a lump. You farm it here and farm it here, and you know, there's your kind of got a dish, and there's your field. I'll explain those. These here, you push, I think usually most guys push uphill. When they built these, a lot of these were called bench terrace. Some guy called them grass back slope, farmable front slopes, whatever you want to call them. You build those pushing downhill. These you push uphill. And contours, I believe that's what this would be, is your contour terrace. They were pushed downhill. A couple rules of thumbs to terraces. So if I look at my field from the sideways, this is my field. You know, so there's my field. You know, I got a gully here and here and here. When you lay these and survey these, you want to make sure that you can trim out your water flow. So, well, I got too much runoff here and here. I got a big pile of dirt there I couldn't move, so I'm going to put an intake here and put an intake here. But here, I can just grade this out. And now I got slope to this intake, so it's setting on every single rut. That's called channels or fills. But ironically, when you get all said and done, god dang, this is hard to draw upside down again, but you get all said and done, that terrace on top is going to be just flat, straight across the hill. So you look straight across the hill, it's just going to be square across the top. So from where we were starting on a starting point to an ending point, it's going to be equal. Usually on a starting point, that's what we call zeroed out. So you may only have a foot of dirt. And this, again, what I'm explaining, is narrow base terraces. We'll just put narrow base, NB, narrow base. At the intakes, I've seen 4-foot fill, pretty standard, seen 5s, even seen some 6s. Then they have something called a 638, I'll explain in a minute. and that's usually at the highest point. But 4 foot of dirt's a big pile of dirt, because here's the slope of your ground, here's your intake, here's your triangle. 2 to 1, 2 to 1 slope. 4 feet of dirt is measured center of your triangle to where the terrace is still 3 feet wide. So you measure where your triangle's 3 feet wide, and it has to be 4 feet tall right in there. That's how they measure those. So the front side here, maybe top of your pile of dirt, maybe 4.5 feet high, and your back side could be, if you shot, you know, out like this and straight down, hell, it could be 9 feet high or better. You get a lot of yardage of dirt in these too. And again, that would be a 5 foot there if it was a 5 foot fill, or whatever the fill is, 4'6". Doesn't matter. Depends on what your cut sheets lay out at. Okay, now when I talk about cut sheets, here's some from the NRCS that we had laid out on our farm. If you remember my other terracing video I did, this would be the farm and this would be the NRCS way of doing it. Now, what most farmers don't understand is if I come in and lay it out, the NRCS lays it out, they're going to pretty much be the same, because we both worked off the same formula and done the research. The only difference when they do it is it's automatically entered in your system. You are officially compliant with all regulations and things that take place as far as erosion. They go, hey, you got a little rut out here. Nope, can't do anything about it because you did the specs to their specs. If I were to lay these out just like they would, they could approve them. Now, if you came in here and just put a bunch of little sideways check dams and you had a little rut, your work that you just spent money for is meaningless. So what they do is they come out to your farm, they do all the survey work, and they generate these maps. And the dots there are intakes, and then the blue lines, of course, are terraces. And it says as staked. So, and I laid in some tile stuff on there, the mains, things like that. So as these look through these deals here, you're going to see terrace basins, and then your terrace numbers, which terrace it is, and type MB, narrow base, lengths, front slope, back slope, 2 to 1s, minimum cut slope, your fill yardage, and then you're going to be, it says topsoil, narrow base, grass, back slope, blah blah. So these are narrow base. Broad base, what I call contour. Topsoil, yes. So you're looking at 9,058 yard job here. And you have 7,500 yards of moving existing dirt. There's your minimum slopes. This explains it. And again, these are the sheets that they produce for you if they come out and do this. So there's farmable back slope. So these are the terraces I just explained. So there's my narrow base that we're using. There's your 3 feet, front slope, back slope, existing slope. So here we go. We got your cut sheets, checkout sheets, whatever you want to call them. So it's going to give you a basic layout and design. You'll notice that this is, so here we go, terrace number 1. You'll notice that this is a 1,300 feet long terrace, flagged every 50 feet, and gives the yards of stripping, everything else. So terrace number 1, which would be down here on the top, and there was already a little short section there. So here's your flag. These are your flag numbers. Now here's Google Earth, and this is actually the farm that I showed in the other video too. And so this will be the terrace 1. So here's your readings. We have ground at the flag on flag 0, and it read 6'7" on his GPS measuring device. The constructed ridge rod would be 5 feet 2. So 6'7" minus 5 feet 2 is 1.5. That means that's 1.5 feet of fill dirt to come in there. So in other words, you're building your triangle up 1.5 feet. And they do the math for you here on the other column. F, fill, 1.5. Channel, fill, nothing, 0. That means on your water side, which is your channel side, you didn't have to move any dirt. DS toes, distance 2 is what that means. Remarks, channel block, which means there's a lump of dirt at the end of the terrace. Now to explain that channel block, here's our top terrace. Our intakes, or something like this, I think. When you get water, and I'm going to use a blue pen to signify water, because this is probably a couple foot of fill or a couple feet of slope. Let's just look here on the cut sheet. So your first intake was right here, and it was a 2.3 foot fill. So that's 2.3 feet, which means if you look across the hill at a profile of this thing, here's your ground. Here's that intake on that first intake. There it is. That's 2.3. So remember I talked about the 4 and the 5 and the 6? That was a 2.3 on that one. I'm having to hit pause a lot on this video here today because I've been getting a lot of phone calls. There we go, get her to zoom. Anyway, back to this water. So we just showed that intake of the 2'3" fill, which is this one. So what they do is the water, when it pools up, because there's probably a highest point in the ground here, then it slopes towards this intake. So the water's going to run this way, this way, this way, this, you know, like this, towards these low spots. So this water is going to pool up like this. And it could run out the end. So what they do is they build these little blocks down here. They're called channel blocks. They build them like this. Just a big low drive over lump. And that'll keep that water, you know, like this. So the idea is to fill it clear to the top. The other idea back up here, when you have that 2'3", is if you got your grade right, so here's the end of your field with that 1.5, and if you got that 2'3" here, the idea is water should never come over the top. It should be like just plumb full, like a tank of water. So moving back down through here, you can see where it says existing terrace. That's because there was a terrace there. And most all those are fills. And we'll go to the second terrace. All I'm seeing is fills. And we're not really seeing much yeah, looks pretty good. That field was pretty level, actually. It was not a rough field. So we got all F's. So I think I saw some C's in here. Let me explain that. There we go. This would be Terrace 2. There we go. There's cut, and that's on the channel side. 1 foot, or 1.3 fill. So you're hardly putting any dirt in, but you're actually cutting away the ground in the front. So you're still creating a triangle, but you're cutting the lump away in the front. That's one of the hardest things I had getting through some of the workers I had's heads, was you have to slope that ground all to run to those intakes, which is where it should have been in the first place. Now to explain that a little bit more, say you got that field and you got these intakes here, and you know, prior to putting that in here, you know, you may have a little rut like this, and another rut over here, but pretty soon ruts start spider webbing, and they're everywhere. So instead of your ground just going, you know, looking at your ground, so it's kind of going like this and up and back down, pretty soon your ground's like this. So we maybe find the low spot, set our intake, then we cut these off. That's channels and, you know, cuts and fills. So we got, when you get done, we have a ground profile. It just kind of goes like this. And when you build terraces right, as you're coming around your hill, maybe you got ground that goes like this, and you got some big deep gouge. When you build your terrace, because you're going to be utilizing some of this dirt, you know, that's a big gouge, but I cut here, and I slope this. So when you get all said and done, you got ground just kind of goes like this. And this would be on the fill side, which is the downhill side. So if you look through the terrace, there's your intake. Here's your, God damn it, that's supposed to be straight. But anyway, that's supposed to be a straight line. Anyway, there's an intake. But you've used that dirt to make your ground more farmable, so you don't have to go down through washouts, ravines, and things. That's your farmability factor. Here was another map here that I had looked at this farm, and this is just a topography map. Oops, don't drop it. This is just a topography map, and you can see land profiles and contours, and then we figure out how to go in and manipulate these contours to apply terracing. Here's some more of them dated 1109. This was the layout design. This was just a couple of short stints up through here, but this was another NRCS generated program. Now, if you actually want to get into site plans and stuff like that, then you're going to get into more complicated things like this. And this was for an actual structure that was supposed to go along the edge of a creek. So here's a site plan. This is, again, they're all going to be in topography maps. And I drew my own legend. And what they were doing was basically setting like a 60, I think it says here. Well, there's the auxiliary spillway. It comes out. And as you can see, that's a 10 to 1, 10 to 1. Gives you lengths. And then, you know, there's your working area. So there's your gully profile. Then there's, so existing ditch gully bottom. So there's your crest, which means the top of the gully. Then you're going to have the top of your structure, your spillway. So this is what they're proposing. 48-inch pipe, 66-inch rising pipe. I bid about $70,000 on this job, and didn't get it. There's the riser it was going to have, and there's the profile of earth. And I figured it was at a fixed cost of $42,000 in it. Some idiot came in and bid it at $49,000, and I think they just kind of slobbed through it. Not sure how it ever even got, didn't get rejected, and then for some reason they approved the guy. But anyway, it just blows my mind how stuff gets done like that. But there's the trash rack and the concrete stuff you had to set. There's your cuts in your pipe you have to make at degrees of angle, pipe sizes and diameters, requirement specifications. And then it shows you how you had to pound your timbers in the ground. And then that supports your V's there, supports your pipe. There's your pipe plan again. Anyway, this is another topic for a different discussion, but again, it does use, you know, site plans like this are going to use elevational standards. So I put all sorts of bids out there, and don't end up getting them, but anyway, at least this gives you an idea how to read the cut sheets. So if you want to come up here to Google Earth, and I'll hold this thing, look at the computer screen. You can see the mouse. You can see what it looks like when it got done. And if we lay this into two-dimensional, let me zoom in. You can see, start to see land slopes. Let's see if I can rotate this around. There you go. See how it's thicker here? And it gets thin, and there's a gap. That's because that was where it zeroed out. It means there's no fill there. Kelly doesn't want to be on YouTube here, but I keep hitting the pause button. Anyway. We're going to zoom up above there. Anyway. So, she keeps walking back and forth by the doorway. I guess this would be that farm that I've been talking about. So, there you can see an intake. And you can see how the rows are formed. You know, how we farm this stuff. Like we farm around the terraces here. We farm around them here, and you can see where the narrow spot's at, because that's a steep part of the ground, so they bump together, then they fill in. That's called a point row, or what we call a point row. Obviously, as the ground profiles change, your point rows get much, much larger out here. Anyway, I'm not sure this adds to the confusion or actually helps anybody understand, but hopefully it explains things a little bit farther and explains maybe what I was doing the other day. And now, when I went to lay that out, and here's that farm, the reason I was not able to hook these together just because it just didn't work out. Yeah, you could do anything you wanted to do, it's just not going to be right. To make it right was to take this terrace here and extend it on up, drop an intake, scratch out the dam, and construct an additional terrace. This dam dirt will end up coming down this old waterway, which will lessen the slopes on everything. And a lot of times, when you do these jobs, you really need to bring a dozer in, smooth it up, prepare the ground, survey work it, then get your tiling and stuff put in. And a lot of guys don't think, oh, I'll just lay tile, I'll just do this, I'll just do that. That's the reason that, like a Hydromax or these newer trenchers have such huge wheels on them. Is you want to get that tile deep, because we got an intake come in here, gonna be a bigger part of the terrace. You get a tile line 6 feet deep, 7 feet deep maybe, and 6 feet to the top of a 12-inch main, and you're cutting 2.5 feet of dirt or 3 feet of dirt out of there to go in and build that terrace structure. You're gonna end up with tile lines 3 feet deep. So it's important to really put that sucker deep in the ground. A lot of years of experience goes into it to do it right, and a lot of contractors that I know around here locally, they don't know these things. They don't know how to survey. They don't know how to be an engineer. It's not just pushing up dirt or building a terrace. It's engineering structures, and it's engineering systems, water management, and this can be applied to anywhere. So I just randomly hit the computer into a random spot up here around like Boone, Iowa. And, if you ever subscribe or if you watch my videos and this is your place, cool. But, the only reason I did that was because I want to talk about why you can do what you can do, anywhere. Now, they may not need terraces, because north of I-80 you don't need to have terrace land, but you still need certain types of erosion control. And you can see, like this guy here, he's got water going down, there's a creek. Water going down, there's a creek. Water going down, there's a creek. Put some tile around these things, get them stopped. It's no reason to maybe not put some structures in there. The northern Iowa guys are starting to get erosion. The weather has changed over the years. The weather has gotten more violent. Here's a guy that's got some terraces out through his field. They're not going to be like we do down here, but in a nutshell, they're all going to start off the ridge about 6 feet. They're all going to be a similar profile deal. Not identical to what we do here, because no two pieces of land are the same. But they're getting ruts. They're getting erosion in the northern Iowa areas. And the reason they haven't had it is because they got more sand in their soil. It's more permeable. But it is occurring. And as you want to pick up a farmability factor, terrace and tile is an important key element to solving those problems. So anyway, obviously the system will work in any situation, and it is amazing how you can get around Google and see what people are doing. But all these little circles are wet spots. You take a field like this, there's a wet spot, there's a wet spot, there's a wet spot. There's a lake right here on the other side of the road. Water probably runs into a lake. I'd imagine there's a creek or a stream around here. You zoom out and you look at the United States on a big scale. There's where I was working off of. It's a land mass. Water runs this way, south. Water runs back to the ocean. Evaporational processes, everything bring it back. Anyway, desert. Where the green's at, obviously you got foliage and stuff. But it doesn't take too much. I mean, look, there's a big, you can see a big river. You can see hills and things, and as you zoom in, it becomes more transparent to each individuality of down the per farms. And by the way, that's where we're located. I call the southwest corner of Iowa I-80 to 35 to the Missouri border to Nebraska. So you guys that live in this area are much better off. Anyway, I've rattled on about it enough. Ask questions. Maybe I can keep explaining it. I'm going to toss this video together and throw it up today. I don't know if I've made anything any better or not, but hopefully I have. And hopefully I've explained some things that'll, maybe help you guys see what I'm doing. And I'll try to keep doing that as I keep making the daily videos, and maybe even watch me even get the thing constructed if this damn snow ever goes away. They're talking cold temps for 2 or 3 days, and it just doesn't look good. Now, there's a farm's a complete damn wreck. That's what they look like for terrace and tile. You got ditches and hill slopes and shit, and it's just a mess. You need to wipe all that out. And it's probably an old pasture they started farming when ethanol got high, but stuff like that could really be improved. You zoom around the map here, and there's one that's a lot better done. So I think that's actually just grass strips through the width of them. But at least they're managing their contours. Anyway, that's enough for today. Thanks for watching. Fire away with questions. I was just about to conclude this video, and I was doing the editing on it a little bit, what a little bit I do. And I realized I didn't explain the terraces and why those competitions blew out. So here's the intake. Square this up a little bit. And then they build this terrace, and it goes up real steep, and they kind of come down. They look like this. And here's your ground. And the reason they were looking like this is because they had a dozer that had enough footprint on it, and they were lifting their blade in an angular motion. That's the wrong way to do it. You should really, it looks like an A now, but it really needs to be a triangle. And when you use a heavier machine, too heavy, it'll actually crush and push this dirt. It'll want to pop it out the back. Too light, you can build them like this, but you don't get enough compaction generally. You get about the right weights or the right shoes of machines, and when you bring up that blade, you end up with a nice, smooth, transitioned terrace. So here's your land slope. So a couple of things I always had hired help that was trying to get, they couldn't get through their head was, you end up with your slope and your terrace. You want this slope to just be a nice crisp edge right here. Your planter can go, your wheels, your planter or whatever can go right there. And they ended up with this triangle that come down and just kind of transitioned out like that. There's your original profile. It's really, really hard to farm that. It's a mess. And usually guys are pushing and pushing too damn much, and they try to just keep lifting. It just creates a lump in there. Another problem I've had with guys, they don't know when to back up or anything, so they end up with a field that looks like this when they get done, because they didn't back up far enough. They took all the dirt too close. Well, that isn't going to drain. You want nice transitional land from the end of that terrace. You want it to be nice and gentle slope the whole way back through. That's the key to building them right. Anyway, just wanted to put that in there. Sorry I didn't throw it in earlier. So there you